we're live on Facebook. How's it going, everyone? You're all very welcome to the second of 3 Digital Irish events this month of May, so we're very busy. So thanks for taking the time to come out tonight. My name is Oren. I'm a board member of the Digital Irish. We will soon be chatting to the main man here, who you're actually here to listen to, Mike Hanrahan, in a few moments. And after Mike speaks, we'll listen to 3 pitches from an Irish startup, an Irish-American startup, and Anglo-Irish. So there's a bit of a... We're slightly reaching here tonight, folks, but really, really great stuff, all in the retail tech space, so we're really excited about that. Obviously, we're going to hear about Mike's journey, but first we're going to walk through, as I grab the clicker, just a little bit more about what we do here at Digital Irish. So essentially, Digital Irish is a non-for-profit organisation. We help Irish technology startups with market entry into the US through network and resources. So the big ask here tonight is, if you want any of the startups here, if you feel like you can help them anyway, they all have an ask, whether it's network or resource or office space, reach into your Rolodex and see if you can help. So there's actually a video that explains a little bit better. Clicker problems, of course, we are. Sorry, yeah. It's all right, we can do it with speech. Yeah. You're a CTO, come on.
It happened to me last week. Yeah, really.
Alright, 1 second. Apologies. Alright, we'll get there. Sorry, folks. Good luck, she whispers in my ear. Alright, we're good. Are we? Hey. Alright. So as you can see, a lot of the information was current from that video, but across the last 5-6 years, we have over 3,000 members. We've had over 150 startups pitch, and we've had speakers from the likes of Google, Ogilvy, Common Health. We've done, thankfully, from our network, we've done thousands of intros to brands, experts, and investors, which we're very proud of. Here's a look at our board. Handsome bunch at the bottom. Some are scattered around the area. If you see, for all the J1ers and graduates, anyone looking for a job, if you see this man, stop him in the streets, harass him, chase him down. So obviously, Gavin has done a lot helping place graduates in J1, so do have a word with him. He's downstairs checking people in at the moment, but he'll be back up. And also we have an ex-board member, where's Ashley McKill, that wants to give a quick shout out about jobs, actually, a quick jobs announcement. Yeah, you might need that, yeah.
Hi guys, I'm Aisling. Just want to give a quick shout out. I work for Adwell Group. We're a global advertising technology company. We're hiring for 3 sales positions at the moment in our New York office. Can't sponsor J1s, but we can do H1B transfers. So if you're interested in that, we've got 2 entry level and 1 senior level sales roles. So you can talk to me about all the information here. Thank you.
I guess. Okay, so before we go any further, obviously want to say thanks very much to our hosts here in the Bank Bar and Start Lab, Catherine Slattery. Where's Catherine? It's actually her birthday here today, and this is I think she probably put that in. So happy. I wouldn't trust myself. So yeah, obviously none of this is possible without any of our sponsors, so we'd like to thank shout out to the Department of Foreign Affairs. I know Kieran Madden's in the room somewhere. We won't pull him up to speak. White Williams, our corporate attorney. Tom is around, is he? Tom, do you want to say a quick word? Good man, cheers.
Thanks so much, and I will be very quick. I'm Tom Mulder. I've met many of you before, and we are very proud and happy sponsors of Digital Irish. We have been for a couple of years. You know my colleague Nicole as well. Unfortunately, he's not here tonight. We do all sorts of work across the country, across the globe, so if there's anything we can ever do for any of you, please feel free to ask.
Very good, thanks very much, Tom. So White Williams, our corporate attorney. We also have sponsor. We also have our immigration attorney sponsor, Fiona McEntee from McEntee Law Group. Around. Oh, sorry, right in front of me.
Yeah.
Just a few words.
Yeah.
Hi guys, happy birthday, Kat. You kept that one quiet. So yeah, we're the immigration sponsor for New York Digital Irish. It's great to be associated with such an amazing organization. We're based in Chicago, but as immigration is federal, we have clients pretty much throughout the US. In addition to immigration, we do a lot of advocacy work as well. So we have been working a lot on the E3 visa with a lot of representatives from the Irish government in terms of trying to create awareness and support in relation to that. We also love seeing clients do so well when they come to the States, and we're really happy to serve as a resource in terms of introductions, Rolodex and all those kind of things. So yeah, thanks for having us.
Thanks very much. So we're going to kick into our chat now in just a moment. Just mentioning Chicago, of course, just want to mention also that Digital Irish, although started in New York, has expanded. We now have a London chapter, and we have an event in Chicago next week.
Oh yeah, I forgot.
Yeah, Fiona, please sponsoring as well. So just give a quick shout out to if anyone happens to be traveling in Chicago or is based in Chicago.
Wednesday, yeah.
Wednesday, thank you very much. Okay, great stuff. So we're gonna dive into it with Mike here now. So Mike, I just want to start off by righting a few wrongs here. There's doing my research. There's a bit of fake news there. Mike Hanrahan. A bit of a birther conspiracy. A lot of people taking claim to. Are you from Wexford or Waterford? Or
I am most assuredly from Wexford. So, contrary to, if there's anyone here from Irish Central who have that article up saying I'm from Waterford, Google seemed to have latched onto it. I'm from Wexford. So.
Yeah. So I was doing research, and actually even Dermot was claiming you're from Carlow there a few minutes ago as well. So, yeah, lots of people having taken claim to you. So let's go back to the very start. Obviously, we know all the successes, and we'll delve into that in a moment. But let's go back to your first job was in retail. Is that right?
It was, yes. Actually, before I start, I just want to say big thanks to Aaron and Fergal and everyone at Digital Irish. It's a wonderful, wonderful organization. They're doing amazing, incredible things. I've met some really amazing people who I know are involved with the organization, like Adrian Jones and Deirdre and Fergal and a bunch of other people. So, kudos to you guys for doing that, and delighted to be able to attend tonight. So yes, first job in retail, lugging shoe boxes up and down the stairs. My parents were what we would call small business owners in Ireland, but you'd call them entrepreneurs, I suppose, at Digital Irish. And so I was very much strong-armed into working in my mother's shoe shop in Euros for pretty much every summer from the age I could walk. And so that was my first exposure to retail, and I wouldn't say I was a fan after that, but it worked out okay in the end.
Very good, very good. And then of course you went on to become a chartered accountant. You worked at PwC and you worked in that space for a while. But not to gloss over that, but I suppose when was the moment that I guess technology started to what sparked the interest in technology in your life?
Yeah, well, rather than going forward in time, let's go back a little bit in time to my dad, who was very, very prescient for some reason, and he's not normally, and he's a guy who only recently got an iPhone and is thrilled with it, can't believe that he has all this technology at his fingertips, even though we're like 10 years into the sort of smartphone era. But anyway, back around 1980, 1981, when I was 8 years old, he arrived home from Dublin one night where he used to go up to buy shoes for the shop with this thing called a computer. And my brother and I, who was 2 years older than me, we had never heard of a computer. Our dad had a calculator, all right, which we spent many hours on writing rude words upside down. I had to do that in a calculator. But that was my sort of first exposure, was the calculator. But then we got this computer, which was a thing called a ZX81, which you can look up on Wikipedia. It's a little 1K machine, and there was it was gobbledygook to us, obviously. You used to have to hook it up to the TV and type in, you had to code everything. Obviously, there was no applications in those days. My brother and I used to write letters to a publishing company in America to try and get them to send us a magazine with some code in it that we could then type in. And so we'd spend 2 or 3 hours typing in a game, and we would play it then for 10 minutes, and someone would knock the wire and we would have to start again. So that was my sort of first exposure. And so we all had computers in the house growing up. My dad had no interest, but I think he realized that there were something, that were coming in the future. And so we progressed from the ZX81 to the Spectrum to the Commodore to all the usual suspects. And so I was always able to program really from a young age, and did the chartered accountancy obviously because that's where the money was in those days in Ireland. You were either going to be an accountant, an actuary, a lawyer, or a doctor. And yeah, and my uncle worked at PwC, so that was kind of handy. And so did the accountancy, but at heart I really enjoyed the technology. And so when I moved to London after I finished my articles at PwC, was working there in sort of risk and finance on the business side, and that was sort of mid to late 90s, and it was just starting to become a quantitative profession, risk management. They were just starting to think about concepts like value at risk and how you can use historical data to try and estimate your risk in your portfolio, what's it or whatever. And so to sort of start really working with that type of, those types of concepts, you actually had to start learning technology. We very quickly grew out of spreadsheets, and we were into databases and batch jobs. And so went from there really. That was kind of my first full-time sort of foray into technology, and haven't looked back since, until actually my current role was my first sort of technology job for probably 20 years. So.
Very good. And I suppose, as I said, you moved to London, you worked as a developer mostly in the sort of financial service space, and that's where you met Mark Lohr, which would then obviously be a future founder of Jet yourself. And so that was, I suppose, a fortuitous meeting, and sorry, that was a pivotal meeting in your career, I suppose.
It was, yeah. So that was my very first job in London, was with Mark, who I ended up setting up Jet with. And in fairness, Mark was the founder of Jet. He was the brains behind it. He was the guy who brought the reputation and whatnot, the vision and strategy that made Jet a success. So so very lucky to meet Mark in London. We worked together at Credit Suisse. My very first job in London was with him, and there's a story behind that I won't go into, but I was very lucky to end up working for Mark. And even though I was working in banking and finance, for 14 years in London, this was back in a time when there was no side hustles, right? There was no Uber, there was no gig economy. And so at the weekends and evenings, I was always entrepreneurial. I was always trying to start up little businesses. I had a whole bunch of different companies actually, and I used the money I was earning in finance to pay for staff to kind of run these things on the side. And so my days were filled with, running out of a trading room floor to make a frantic phone call to someone to close a deal, or stop some member of staff from walking out the door, or figuring out how to make the payroll at the end of the month, or whatever it was. And so that was a great sort of trial by fire into small business and entrepreneurial thinking, and just trying to make a buck. And so I enjoyed it. I loved that aspect of it. I always wished I could sort of be full-time into these businesses I had, and unfortunately none of them, a few of them we sold for smallish money. We never really lost that much money, but never made enough to pay the bills. So
very good. So that entrepreneurial gene was sort of fascinating inside. And then I suppose you reconnected with Mark. Obviously, he was running. He founded diapers.com, and he sort of recognized the talent in yourself and recruited you over here to stateside. Tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, that's right. So I had this entrepreneurial gene. I had my brother that I mentioned earlier. So he's just your classical straight down the line career guy. He joined JP Morgan when we both went to London around the same time. He's still there 25 years later. He's a dyed-in-the-wool, hardened career, I won't say criminal banker, and it's a sort of quintessential career guy. And so my mother was always harping on at me basically to say, why can't you be more like your brother? None of your startups are working. You're kind of on it. I used to work on an hourly rate as a contractor to give myself the flexibility, and so under a lot of pressure from the families, where am I going to get my savings, pension, all that kind of stuff. And so then, Mark calls me. He's like, come over to the US, join the startup I'm doing. And so I was talking to him, obviously, it was something myself and my wife wanted to do. We wanted to get out of London at that time, but you know, my family, or my mother and father were like, what are you doing? Like, you know, you're coming up to your early 30s, you need a steady job, you need to settle down, sort of save some money. But we went for it anyway. It was an adventure, you know, and we decided to move over here. We had all the drama of trying to get a H-1B visa. We were super lucky that this was sort of a bit of the sort of downturn of the economy. It was around 2009, and we were in November. There was still a bunch of H-1B visas available, which was, you know, when you think of it now, it's mind-boggling, but there was. And so, so a bit of a sort of tension around the visa, but we got the visa on St. Stephen's Day, and we landed in the US on the 1st of February. So, yeah.
Very good. And obviously, for those who don't know, obviously diapers.com sold for a little over 500 million.
It was 660 million was the total number. Yeah, which they sold.
Just a little chump change.
Which I didn't get really a penny of, frankly. So I was too late to the Quidsi story, even though, you know, I had known Mark, but, you know, there was obviously I got a little bit of equity as a staff member, but it was, yeah, I didn't see a big chunk of that.
Very good, very good. Well, obviously, diapers.com took on an incumbent in Amazon and showed that success. So that's sort of the early blueprint, I guess, for Jet.com. So after the exit with Quidsi, you took a little bit of time off to help raise your family, I guess, which is putting a lot of husbands in this room to shame. But you took 2 years off, but before long you were back sort of in the scheming with Mark?
Well, the scheming started, yeah, pretty much instantaneously. Yeah, so we had 4 kids under the age of 5 at that time, and we didn't really know anyone in the US, so we sort of took the decision to spend whatever little savings we had left, and I was going to take the time off and you know, spend that time with the kids, which was great. I would advise that if anyone is in that sort of position to be able to do that, just do it. You know, it seemed like a big deal at the time, and you might be worried about depleting your savings or not contributing to your pension or college funds, but it was such a precious time. I would absolutely recommend it. But yeah, so you know, I won't say the kids were easy to rear, so I had loads of free time on my hands. That's not the case, but I couldn't help sort of always thinking, you know, Mark and I used to meet pretty regularly. He lived pretty close to me. You know, he was part of the Amazon family at that point, and we really felt that there was, you know, a gap in the market. There was no real big mass market online retailer who was prepared to take on Amazon, and we felt that, you know, we knew what was working at Amazon. We felt we had this concept we called the second mover advantage, where we felt that we could, you know, learn from everything that they had trialed and tested, and we knew what worked for them, and we knew what didn't work, and so we felt we could take all that information and sort of craft a business out of it, and a niche that would allow us to, you know, hopefully build a business that would rival Amazon. The sort of assumption always was that, well, it's not going to be the case that there's just Amazon, right? There's always going to be other players with a similar style value proposition, and you know, why couldn't we be that other player? So
absolutely, it's not winners take all, but winners take most, and there's always someone in behind. So very good. So how did the raising, when you're going into VCs pitching, we're going to take Amazon on, you know, scrappy startup, like obviously you had to raise a good bit of capital then. So tell us a little bit about that process of taking on a huge giant like that, and the resources needed, and I suppose the roadshow that you might have had to done, and how much you raised and so on.
Yeah, so that was a really interesting time for us. The reaction we got from VCs, and we probably spoke to, I'd say, probably somewhere around 200 different VCs, and not just VCs, but pension funds, banks, strategic investors, the full sort of range of people that you might want to talk to. The reaction was very binary. You know, half, I wouldn't say half, but some people were like, "You're mad, you're ridiculous, you're taking on Amazon, like just get out of here," basically. And then the other half were like, "This is actually very intriguing." We were very conservative in our planning and very sort of upfront with how we felt that, or what we felt it would take to build this kind of business, which was, you know, billions of dollars. We were clear that our goal was what we call 20 billion by 2020. That was our sort of revenue target. That's what we sort of pitched on, this 20 billion by 2020. And we would tell the VCs, you know, we will need to raise somewhere in the region of $5 to $7 billion in funding to get us to that level of scale that quickly. And so when you're very realistic about it, when you've got, you know, a plan that is very detailed, very operationally focused. You know, we had the reputation of having done it before at Quidsi, so they knew that we could execute. They knew we were, you know, very much a safe pair of hands when it came to spending that money, knowing how to build the org, how to, you know, create the right culture, the right value system, how to place warehouses in the US to maximize efficiency, all that kind of stuff. So, you know, we definitely had a lot of things going for us in terms of how people interpreted our pitch and our raise. And And so yeah, so we were, people were excited. The VCs had we kind of constantly heard this refrain that no one else was trying to do what we were doing. No one had the goal or the balls to basically take on Amazon, and so it was a new idea in a sense to them. No one else was trying to do this. There was a few people who were kind of just hadn't understood the scale of what it would take. So people trying to do things in sort of startup in the basement or whatever that was never going to work. But a real credible proposition was something they hadn't seen before, and they were excited about it. They could see the rate at which Amazon was growing. They felt the same thing, that this was going to be such a huge market if they can get in on the ground floor of someone else who potentially has that capability. And so it was we met 200 people, but we were raising a lot of money, in fairness, and so it went surprisingly well. We had our first lead investors really very early on, before we'd even incorporated the company. We had 25 million inbound from one of our lead investors. We ultimately raised I think it was about 1.3 billion we raised in the end, which was a mix of VC funding, convertible notes, and the whole lot. And that was done through effectively 3 series A, B, and C. I think Series A we raised 70 million, which we had said, it was kind of weird. We're raising 70 million. I think that was in April, and we had said, we'll be back, we'll see in September, basically, because we're going to spend that 70 million between now and then. So, but they got it, right? Like, if you set that expectation up front, they get it. So
Absolutely, yeah, very good. So obviously you've raised that massive, that's an absolutely staggering Series A. There's a lot of pressure on them to deliver on that. Were there any dark days where you're on the path, you're saying, okay, like, let's keep the lights on here? Were there any challenging moments?
Not sort of financially. I think we always managed that pretty well. I think some of the key challenging moments for me, launch day was certainly a big one. I was on the hook as the chief technology officer, obviously. If the things didn't work, my stuff was the very public stuff. If the warehouse couldn't cope, or the call center didn't cope, no one really knew that, right? It was kind of something that would happen slowly and would be sort of slowly unfolding disaster that the press wouldn't latch onto. But if the website crashed and the systems didn't work, that was a very sort of public loss of face if that happened. So that was very stressful. We had sort of, our upper bound estimates had said we thought we would do somewhere between 500,000 and 750,000 on our first day. And so that's what we sort of tested for. We've done all our load testing and all the rest of it. But then the day before launch, our PR team told us that they'd managed to get Mark on all the morning shows. And the morning shows actually reached out to us and they said, just so you know, you're going to see an incredible amount of traffic hit your site very quickly, and it's going to come in the course of about 30 seconds. And so there was like a 2-day dark period, I would say, where we worked, Microsoft, in fairness, worked with us very closely over those 2 days. We ran our whole system on Azure, so they felt they were on the hook as well to keep the thing up and running. And so we ultimately ended up doing sort of, I think it was about 1.5 million the first day, 3x what we thought. And the site did stay up, thankfully, and that was a nervous moment that worked. In terms of things that went horribly wrong, probably that first Halloween was a horrific experience for us. I don't know how much you guys know about sort of product catalogs and retail, but basically, the success of Amazon over the last, whatever it is, 20 years, a lot of it's driven by, almost everyone on Amazon buys on the product page. They just click out the basket. No one digs down into the sort of marketplace sellers. And so what has resulted in that, sort of unintended consequence of that, is that people create sort of products themselves. They'll bundle 2 things together and they'll claim it's a new product, and they'll just make up UPC numbers. There's no coordination, no one going back to a central authority. They just make the numbers up, and the reason they do that is because if it's unique, then if you search for, if I sort of put that camera in that camera stand and call it a single product, and someone searches for the camera or the camera stand, my product might come up. I'll be the only seller of it. Someone will add it to basket. And so that's created a complete mess in the world of sort of product data. And we kind of knew this from, Quidsi wasn't a marketplace, but we knew it from sort of working at Amazon for that short period of time that we did. But we just didn't really appreciate the extent of it. And it really came to the fore that first Halloween. We had, I can't remember how many we sold. We sold a lot of costumes that first Halloween. But the problem was the costume UPC codes, which we thought were the right codes. They were the ones that were coming from third-party marketplace sellers, and they would say this is product X, but in our system, product X, and for a lot of this costume stuff was basically toilet cleaners and toilet brushes and that type of stuff. And so we ended up shipping out quite a lot of toilet brushes and things like that, which we couldn't fathom why everyone was buying toilet brushes for Halloween. And so, that created a huge nightmare for us. But it was also, we learned from it very, very quickly. We had thought that our core value prop at Jet was around building bigger baskets to get lower prices. And so we invested a lot in the technology to make that happen. And it's sort of very complex from a mathematical perspective to do that. We sort of very quickly realized our biggest technical problem is actually our product catalog, and how do you keep it in shape, and how do you keep all the products squared away and know exactly what you're selling at all times. And so it was a real learning experience. We pivoted a lot of resources technically to solve that problem. And that's still today, 5 years later, still one of the biggest problems in e-commerce is getting really good data for marketplaces.
Very good. So we all know you weathered the storm. Obviously, there's a happy ending. But when obviously you guys were Quidsi, Amazon sort of took note of what you guys were doing and lowered their diaper prices and launched Amazon Mom and stuff. So you quite clearly flicked these us in the nose basically, and had garnered the attention of Amazon. Was there any moments that when in Jet.com we're like, okay, we're challenging the beast here, like, and there's like some indication that we're challenging the incumbent?
Yeah, there was a lot, and I probably can't talk about most of them honestly, but we leaned into that a little bit. It was a good PR story for us to sort of David versus Goliath. One of the New York Times reporters had written a book around that time, and the whole story of Quidsi has a whole chapter in that, and it talks about some of the machinations that went on when Amazon bought Quidsi, which were hard business tactics, but I guess that's Amazon being successful, so it works dearly for them. And so there was definitely some announcements that came out of Amazon that felt to us like there were times, but there's also a bit of paranoia maybe in that. I wouldn't like to point at anything and say that anyone was doing anything egregiously or whatever, but yeah. Very
good, but you obviously caused us there, because eventually Jet.com was acquired by Walmart for just north of $3 billion. I'm going to say north of $3 billion, you're going to correct me now, it's going to $250 million, no big deal. What was the?
3.3.
3.3. Pocket change, drop it running for the bus. So first of all, how good did that feel?
Yeah, it's obviously I'd always sort of fantasized about how this thing might exit and if it was successful, and it was a little bit different and probably better actually in terms of how it turned out. It happens in stages. There's not one moment, right, really, where it actually happens. It takes, by the time you have the initial conversations and you get a term sheet and the contract negotiations go on for a while. And so I kind of like it. You're like slowly winning the lottery. To me, that's what it's like, which is wonderful. You kind of, and every day you're sort of calculating the probability that this thing will actually land and go ahead, and it gets a little bit better every day, and every little event and meeting pushes things along. So yeah, it was like slowly winning the lottery. It was obviously incredible, life-changing experience, and yeah, I'm super grateful to have that opportunity.
Fantastic. And then I suppose when obviously the acquisition of the Walmart, you go from I wouldn't say scrappy startup, but you go from startup to essentially incumbent. So what is that cultural shift as you become absorbed into Walmart and doing things your way, and I suppose working with the Fortune 1, the biggest company in America?
Yeah, it's obviously big cultural difference in terms of Walmart versus what Jet was. Walmart, I think they're the third biggest organization in the world after the Chinese Army and the Indian Railway or something like that. They've got 2.5 million people globally. They've got 1.5 million people here in the US. And so you can imagine anything that might happen. 1.5 million or 2.5 million is close to the working population of Ireland. Anything that could happen in Ireland can happen internally in Walmart. I mean, it's that size of an organization. And so, it's just incredibly vast and Byzantine, and the processes and teams and systems that do things, you just couldn't get your head around it. So clearly, some cultural differences. They've been operators effectively for the last 40 years. They are very innovative, and they don't get enough credit for that. They were doing drones before Amazon, about 2 years before Amazon was, for delivery, and they never got a line of credit or press or PR out of it. But so there is a lot of innovation that happens at Amazon, but it's also true that they've been building up their sort of 12,000 stores globally, 5,000 here in the US, and so they're very, very regimented. You have to be to run that type of organization. Very, very process driven, and very, very successful obviously at that. Jet was brought in. They were very clear that they didn't want to disrupt our culture. They wanted to learn from our culture, learn from what we were doing, and I think that was done very genuinely, and they were quite honest about that. We actually had an all hands on the morning of the acquisition, and Doug McMillan, the CEO of Walmart, was there. And it was kind of a bit of a smart ass to work for me. And Doug said, any questions? And this guy put his hand up, and just a real sort of cynical question was like, so Mr. McMillan, what can we expect from Walmart in the way of process? What can we expect in the way of regulation? Are we all going to have to sign new contracts? What about, how do we, can we talk on social media? It's just like this litany of sort of negative things in this guy's question. And Doug McMillan, who's incredibly engaging, charismatic, and smart guy, sort of stood there, looked at him, and sort of smiled and said, "No, the only thing you're getting from Walmart is money, is investment." And the whole place cheered, and it was like, I think they were very true to that. It was like a small committee that was senior leaders at Walmart, and that we could go to if we felt we were getting sort of hugged by the bear, as they would say internally. So culturally, it's different, but they were, I think they absorbed a lot of good things about Jed. We certainly learned a lot from them, obviously, and I personally learned a lot about how to operate well from them as a company. So
great, and I suppose that leads to your current position now. Of course, you're the CEO of Walmart's Intelligent Retail Lab. You guys are basically in everything I read maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, last month, with your launch of this was the real store experience in Levittown in New York. So can you tell us a little bit more about that smart store?
Yeah, so the Intelligent Retail Lab is a venture that was set up, and this kind of goes a little bit back to your question of culture, Aaron. It's part of a group within Walmart called Store Number 8, and Store Number 8 was the original store that Sam Walton used to do all these innovation at Walmart back in the sort of 60s. And so we sort of called Store Number 8 sort of in homage to that particular store. And so it's a little bit like an internal VC or an internal innovation fund. They have a pool of money that they can invest in various companies, all wholly owned by Walmart. And the idea is they want to do the type of innovation that's maybe 3 to 5 years out, that maybe has high execution risk, that maybe the ROI is a little bit amorphous on. So there's a lot of very, very big innovation teams at Walmart in Bentonville, but they're typically looking at 12 months. Typically, you need to know the ROI, typically low execution risk. So Store Number 8 was sort of set up to try and do some of that leapfrog style innovation. And so I was lucky enough to be asked to really think about how we would use artificial intelligence in the physical retail space for them. It's a technology whose time has come. So camera technology, the algorithms, the models, the way you can sort of manage data, it's all kind of come together now that you can really start building practical applications with that type of technology. So we set that up about 2 years ago. We've sort of pretty much been in stealth mode since then, building out the platform, trying to figure out what we're going to do. And so ultimately what we've built is what we call an AI factory. It's the place that's going to build all the processes, tools, technologies, new systems, new software that's going to be driven by sensors in the physical retail space, largely meaning cameras, but also things like load cells, sonar pushers, capacitance mats. And so we're in that space, sort of exploring, experimenting, discovering what are the use cases that we could scale out to Walmart, what are the tools that we could legitimately get a good ROI on for Walmart as we think about artificial intelligence.
Very good. And I suppose it's, as I said, it's described as artificial intelligence meets real world shopping, and that's absolutely what it is. It's a fully functional store, it's a big store, it's a busy store, so you have a fantastic test bed there. And I suppose someday, maybe you can talk a little bit to some of the stuff that you're not working on at the moment that is live in the store. It seems to be, from my perception, like less, very high moonshot, holograms, VR shopping, etc., but very, very real, practical, functional uses of AI for shoppers.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So it's as Aaron said, it's a functioning space, 50,000 square feet. It's the second busiest neighborhood market in Walmart's neighborhood market format, which is about 600 in the US. And so we've got over 100 associates there. Very complex store. It's anything that you would typically see in any Walmart is generally would happen in that store, just given the size of it. And so we really sort of feel philosophically on our project, given the investment that Walmart have put into our project, that we really want to build technology that can scale to the existing Walmart footprint. They have 5,000 stores in the US. It would be fun and easy to do a concept store over in Hoboken where we're based, and that would be, no doubt, a lot of fun. Well, I'm having a lot of fun what I'm doing right now, but it wouldn't have huge practical value in the sort of near term for Walmart. We really wanted to build things that could directly influence how Walmart thinks about running the business right now. And so we've got, I think, over 200 different use cases that have been given to us by the business in terms of how we could use cameras in the store environment. And so this is all going to sound very mundane, but it's actually very transformative at the Walmart level. They're doing a little over $500 billion annually in sales. And so if you can do something that makes a 0.1% difference, that's whatever, $500 million, right? And so a 0.1% difference in anything is significant. And so it's easy to make those style of investments. So we're looking at things like on-shelf inventory is a big one. Walmart already probably the best retailer in the world at keeping stock on their shelves, very, very efficient supply chain. But it's always the case that we can do better. And so, using AI, we can know in real time what products are on the shelves, where they are, what is the state of the shelves, are they tidy? If a customer walks up to them, can they find what they're looking for? And the AI is really suited to that. It's probabilistic in nature, but if we know with like 98% certainty, that's 98% more information than we have right now, and we can act on that quite comfortably. So
yeah, just I suppose one of the interesting pieces that I saw on that, and I think it was written about TechCrunch, Forbes, everywhere, so I read a lot about it. But the amount of data that is being processed from all these sensors, there's a full, pretty much data center next to you while you shop. So it's like 1.6 terabytes a second. There you go. That's
yeah.
That's
we're even draining the power.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're doing about 1.6 terabytes a second, which is the equivalent of 3 years worth of downloadable music per second that we process through the GPUs that are on site. So it's a lot of data. It's complex from an engineering perspective. The AI is actually, honestly, maybe 5 to 10% of what we spend our time thinking about. So much of our time is trying to understand networks and how to manage GPUs and how to integrate with existing Walmart systems and all that kind of stuff. But that's where the value is, frankly. That's how we productionize these things, operationalize them, get all the observability, the logging, the telemetry, all that stuff you need for a production system at Walmart scale. The AI is obviously at the core of it, but it's making it real. There was a Bain report that came out a few weeks ago that said roughly 25% of companies are looking at AI and sort of physical sensor space, computer vision systems, those kinds of things, but only 2% are actually doing anything with them and putting things in production. So we feel we're at the cutting edge of a lot of this. Actually, our goal is to get this stuff in production, get it out to the chain.
Very good. So I suppose the last question we'll ask you before we wrap up. There's obviously a number of startups here in the retail tech space. A lot of people trying to, match the success that you guys have had, either rocking the incumbent or working, potentially partnering with a Walmart or an Amazon or a giant retailer like that. What piece of advice would you give to a retail tech startup right now?
Yeah, it goes back to what I just said. Like it's, I don't say it's easy, but it's pretty easy to do proof of concepts of lots of ideas, right? It's easy to come up with an idea and showcase it at NRF, for example, where we've seen hundreds of retail tech companies over the last couple of years. But what you're going to run into a brick wall with at Walmart or Target or Amazon or anyone like that is just how do you scale? How do you deal with the scale of Walmart? If you can't give a cogent and convincing story that your team can operationalize across 5,000 stores and can support the procurement of whatever equipment may be needed, and deal with all the liability issues. And I deal with a lot of startups in my role, and before we even talk to them, we have to do an NDA, right? So that's 3 or 4 pages of, they need to have legal people who can understand that. Then we do an MSA, which is almost 90 pages. Walmart are one of the most sued companies in the world. I think they are the most sued company in the world. And so when we go through what's that?
Congratulations.
Yes. And so, their MSAs, their contracts reflect that. And so as a small company, if you write back and say, well, this is ridiculous, I can't spend $10,000 having legal people review this contract, they're going to lose faith in you very, very quickly. And so you got to be prepared to make that investment and, put a very strong front up that you absolutely can do this. It's no bother, you can scale, and you got to behave in terms of how you communicate. You can't be questioning contracts and stuff. There's always a red flag with them. It's like, well, they can't even manage the contract. How are they going to, roll out to 5,000 stores? So that's probably the biggest piece of advice, is to understand and be realistic with yourself that you can do it, because they have a very, very well thought out, well trained muscle in terms of how they deal with new technology and new companies. It's very sort of regimented and process driven, and they'll sort of find out sooner or later if you're not being honest with them in terms of what you can do. You'll start in one store, then you'll go to 10, then to 25, then to 50, and so on. And at some point in the thing, it'll fall over if you're trying to do everything manually. that will come to the fore pretty quickly. So, yeah.
Well, listen, thanks very much, Mike, for your time. That was really interesting insight on your career trajectory and what you're doing at the moment as well. So, please join me in giving a big round of applause. Okay, so up next, we are going to hear from 3 startups. As I said, Irish American, Irish Anglo sort of angle. So first, we're going to hear from Tim Artis at InTouch. Clicker works now.
Thank you very much. So before I start, I just wanted to quickly thank Digital Irish for hosting us tonight. Also to Bank of Ireland. We have done a lot of work from their incubation space in Ireland as well, so thank you very much for that. Much appreciated. So my name is Tim. I'm one of the co-founders at InTouch.com. We're an Irish-based company. If you have trouble understanding my Dutch accent, I brought 2 of my colleagues tonight. So Helen and Sam are here as well, so if you have any problems, reach out to them as well. So our journey really started around 3 years ago when we were sparked with a lot of interest around what's happening in retail. So we saw that big online companies like Amazon, Google, PayPal, etc., they were all moving into the offline space. They were making heavy investments and moving their assets offline. But when you were reading the news, you were reading that physical retail is dying. So that was kind of contradicting each other. And we really wanted to understand why these large brands were moving to the offline space and what they knew that offline retail maybe didn't know. So this is maybe the average supermarket store that you would see in your neighborhood. Maybe not the retail store that Mike is building, but what we're really seeing is that physical retail is not dying, but it's going through a massive transformation. And what we believe is that one of these elements is going to be personalization. So for example, Amazon, if any one of us would go to the website, we all see a different version of the Amazon store. And we believe that this is one of the elements that the store of the future will hold as well. So what we are doing at InTouch, we help physical retail stores to show the right product to the right customer at the right time. So we are very different from a lot of our competitors who are also doing personalization in the way that we have built our product. So we have built it completely from the ground up for physical retail. It's based around 4 different levels. So I'm going to quickly run through the levels to give you a bit of an idea of how it works exactly. So the bottom level is the store level, which is more around the geo-coordinates of the store. So we mine data about the weather, the time of day, social data, open data, etc., to understand what's happening at a store level. So that's more personalization that's relevant to everybody. So if it rains outside at a store at, for example, Broadway, that's relevant to everybody. So when I show umbrellas, that's again relevant to everybody that enters the store. So if we go one level higher, it's more segmented. So we also use a lot of cameras to understand, for example, gender. We can also segment based on age and even on mood. One level higher is personalized. So we would, for example, understand if it's you and specific that walked into a supermarket. And last but not least, we also work with behavioral insights to understand what people are doing inside the store and show the right product based on their behavior at that moment. So the building blocks, so we have built an AI platform that helps retailers understand 3 core elements. The first element is product intelligence. So if you're a retail store with, let's say, 30,000 products, we help you understand whether a product, for example, is relevant to a certain weather condition. So umbrellas are linked to rain, barbecue products might be linked to sunny weather or a sunny weather forecast. So we have completely automated this piece, so you upload 30,000 products and we'll give you an output on what audiences to target, for example, but also what conditions around the store are most relevant for this product. So the second piece is the store intelligence. Once we know what's happening inside the store, we can, for example, determine the gender, as I mentioned before, or the weather conditions. And once I know these 2 elements, so what the product, who the product should target, what's happening inside of the store, we move to the third piece, which is the decision intelligence, which is ranking the products and showing the right product for the right environment inside the store. So we also do a piece of machine learning at the decision intelligence, so we actually measure if the promotions that we have shown to the customers are actually resulting in an uplift. So we have a very ambitious target of pre-indexing 100 million products. So if we go live with one of our retailers, we don't want to start the learning journey, but we're actually doing that upfront. So we are working on heavily indexing 100 million products up front. So if we onboard any of our retailers, there's a large chunk of their products that we already understand. So what we're offering really is a plug-and-play pilot for the bottom 2 levels of personalization, for the store level and the segmented. There's absolutely no IT integration needed, which makes it very attractive for retailers to try our offering. So this is actually a quick video. So here you can see one of the digital touch points that you might have inside the store. It recognizes different genders. It can recognize what's happening outside of a retail site, and it will start personalizing the promotions. So this technology can really be deployed on any digital touchpoint that you might have inside the store. So if, for example, it can be a kiosk that is running different services, but we're also integrating now, for example, with self-scanners, digital shelf labels, etc. So any digital touchpoint inside the store can be personalized using our software. So what we're here for really today is we're looking for introductions to tier 1 retailers. So ideally they would have over 200 sites. That's when our product really comes to value. And we're also preparing for Series A. So if you have some cash lying around on the side, come talk to us. Yeah, so this is the team again. So if you have any people in your network that you think that might be able to help us, please reach out. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tim. So next up, we're going to have Michael Murphy from Radar.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. I'm Michael Murphy. As you probably noticed, I have a very Irish name. Unfortunately, don't have the charming Irish accent, so you'll have to put up with my New York accent. But I do have the citizenship, thanks to my father. So Lauren and Fergal made me show my passport before I came. All jokes aside, glad to be here and share a little bit more about Radar. Mike and I actually met at Chet's offices a couple years back. And I'm the co-founder and COO at Radar. And what we're building at Radar is a fully integrated RFID and computer vision platform to automate inventory management, analytics, and checkout in physical stores. For those of you who are not familiar with RFID as a technology, it's radio frequency identification. It's effectively a radio frequency barcode that is 100% unique. So no tag is replicable within an inventory management system. So while our platform has the 3 capabilities that I outlined, the first problem that we're focused on solving is the massive inventory management problem that still exists in retail today. This has been a problem that retailers have known about for quite some time. It's only become more top of mind with the increased importance that retailers are placing on having a true omni-channel inventory pool. So they really want the ability to fulfill online orders from distribution centers or from physical stores. And this has raised the importance of inventory accuracy to the retail enterprise. How is this still a problem? Retail is one of the oldest industries that exist. And this problem still exists for 2 main reasons. One, inventory management processes today remain highly manual. Everything from a pad and a pen to a barcode scanner, even to handheld RFID readers. And then 2, just even listening to Mike talk, there are solutions focused on automating this process, but they're extremely expensive to deploy at this stage, at this point in time, and therefore they're not cost effective for retailers to deploy at scale. So not surprisingly, this is exactly where we come in. So the first product that we're taking to market includes 2 key components. One is a ceiling mounted sensor. This is a rendering, obviously. It's that gray disc on the ceiling. It is effectively an RFID reader that is equipped with cameras. We use RFID to track all products within the space, and we use vision to track customers and their movements throughout the space. And the first user application that we're taking to market is a mobile app for in-store employees to access all of the data captured by our sensor and more efficiently work through inventory management related tasks. So what this includes is the automation of inventory counts. We know exactly what's in stores and where it is and can access that information at the tap of a button and present that to an in-store employee on a map. And coming back to the theme of online order fulfillment, one of the key capabilities we also offer is the ability to turn physical stores into reliable distribution centers for online orders. We're focused on this problem first because it is documented to have a direct impact on retail sales. There's a lot of research and case studies that prove this point. And anecdotally as well, prior to working at Radar, I was the head of Rfid at Inditex, the parent company of Zara. And we saw up to a 15% increase in sales simply due to solving the restocking problem on the sales floor by implementing Rfid. In addition, with our solution, we're able to expose 100% of the in-store inventory to the online customer. By a point of reference, today, apparel retailers claim that they're only able to expose about 40% of in-store inventory to the online customer, just due to the lack of confidence they have in those systems. And while I've been talking a lot about inventory management, it's incredibly important to note that with the exact same infrastructure that I previously described, that we're using to solve this inventory management problem, we're also able to unlock next generation capabilities, what we ultimately view as industry changing via simple software updates, so no additional hardware is required. So first, what this includes is introducing item level analytics at the physical store. So because of our proprietary technology, we're able to begin measuring physical stores like a website, tracking how many times a specific item's been picked up, what items are being looked at together, in the case of apparel, what's being taken to the fitting room. So effectively capturing this robust set of data that is currently being lost in the physical store. And another big trend that we're able to capitalize upon as well is obviously the notion of autonomous checkout. So similar to an Amazon Go, a customer would be able to walk in the store, grab an item, walk out, and get charged automatically. So these are our phases 2 and 3, but our first focus is inventory management. So from a technical standpoint, what makes us different are 3 key components. The first is we've proven that we're able to locate an RFID tag more accurately than any other solution in the space, which is significant because it allows us to solve the classic problems that our competitors have been focused on, but more efficiently, because we can route employees and eventually customers to the exact location of a product within stores. The second is that we're able to actually locate a product more accurately than our competitors' systems, which is significant because it creates the ability to scale up to stores that have a lot of products as well as people. And then last but not least, this location accuracy and speed allows us to meaningfully integrate RFID data with vision data to extract the best of both systems. Our CTO frequently says that we're not a technology company, we're a solution company, and it just so happens that RFID and computer vision are the 2 technologies best equipped to solve the problems that we're focused on today, but that may evolve over time, and right now we're capitalizing upon the flexibility that this combination offers. It's important to note that what we're building is highly defensible. We filed patents on over 20 inventions to date. We've built a custom sensor from scratch. Our CTO, leveraging his experience, he built the overhead RFID solution for Intel, sold his company to Intel prior to joining Radar. So even if people knew exactly what we were doing, it would be very hard to replicate simply due to the hardware production cycle. And this fortunately puts us in a favorable position as far as we view it to our competitors and to the market. Our existing competitors that you see, the Tyco, Zebra, and Intel Impinges, due to technical limitations, they're relegated to focusing on inventory management problems into perpetuity, as far as we know today. A lot of retailers want to be doing what Amazon Go and JD.com are doing with their autonomous stores, but the technical approach that both of these companies are taking are not cost effective for retailers who actually need to turn a profit on those stores. Those companies have very different motivators for opening physical stores than, say, a Walmart. So we're very fortunate to have built a great team so far, and we are growing. I touched upon our CTO, CEO. And we've been very lucky to put together a lot of team members from organizations where they've built scalable systems and processes. So we're absolutely thinking about scaling the system to 5,000 or more stores. And even more fortunately, what we're building is very much resonating with the market. We recently signed our first 3 customers. They're all publicly traded billion-dollar apparel retailers. 2 of them actually participated in our last round of funding. And this is enabling our growth. So this is actually my ask for the audience today. If you happen to know any fantastic engineers in New York or San Diego who would like to join a growing company, we'd obviously appreciate any introductions.
Okay, thanks very much, Mike. So last but not least, we have Tora Brooks from Shepherd.
Thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you guys today. As you can tell from my accent, I grew up in England, but I do have the Irish connection through my mother's side, so please don't hold it against me too much. Oh, I'm going backwards then. Alright, so at Shepherd, we started the company about 2.5 years ago, and we're a B2B company that basically works with other businesses across many different industry sectors to provide them with on-demand inspection and data collection services. And we do this through a network of shepherds, we call them, but they're essentially a managed network of gig economy workers that using our app can accept inspection tasks in their local area. So essentially what we do is we give our customers the power to send a real human being to any physical location at a very short notice to collect any information that they need from that location, whether it be photos, videos, any other kind of data collection. And you know, that can be anything from a CPG company that wants information on retail practices in the stores in which they distribute through, all the way to insurance companies that use our network to very quickly collect information from their insured assets on things where there's been a claim, for example, and they want to process that claim quickly. So when we onboard our clients, what we do is we work with them to form basically a customized checklist. So we want to be able to catch all the information that they need to collect from any physical location. This allows us to make sure that we're getting the exact right information when we send people out to these locations, that we can QA it really effectively, and also so that there's a really structured way of collecting this information. A lot of the clients we work with don't just want to check 1 or 2 assets, they actually check huge portfolios of assets. So for example, we work with TfL in London, checking 5,000 bus stops all across the city. They don't want to have to click through 5,000 reports. So being able to collect information in a very structured way means that they can extract and analyze this information really, really easily. So on the Shepherd side, we really want to ensure that the people we have on the ground doing these tasks for us are of the absolute best quality, and therefore we're getting the absolute best quality information back through to our customers. So we do this by, when we're onboarding people, we make them do a background check, we get them to do some online training, we also get them insurance through our platform as well, so that we can be sure that everyone going out and doing everything is of the highest quality. And so once they've gone through this process and given us all the information they need, they can download our app. And so on that app, basically it gives them the opportunity to accept jobs that are in their local area. They can reject anything they want, there's no obligation for them to pick it up. And then once they've accepted that job, it serves them with the checklist that we've created with our customer and allows them to actually go out and collect that information. So they use the app to create their inspection report, and then as soon as they hit submit, that goes through to our team in London who check everything and make sure that it's all up to standard, and then it's shared in real time with the client. So just a quick example of one of the customers we work with. So L'Oreal is one of our customers within the retail space that use us to do a lot of in-store inspections and checks for them. So they use us in a scheduled way. So if they know that they've got a big promotion coming up or a big new product launch, and they want to make sure that all the stores across the whole country they're launching this product in are rolling out the product correctly and the correct merchandising is in place, then they'll use us to go out and actually do checks in these stores, coordinated way all across the country. They also use us in a reactive way as well though. So one of the the strengths, I think, of our network is that we can mobilize them very, very quickly. And so L'Oreal have often come to us and said, you know, we've launched this promotion yesterday, we got day one sales figures in and they're not what we expected. Can we send people to, you know, 300 stores across the UK and Ireland tomorrow to see what the issue is and see if we can identify a root cause? We're often able to mobilize people in that fashion within 24 hours, and so we can get that information to them very quickly so they can make any adjustments that they need to make. This is just an example of some of the other customers we're currently working with. So as you can see, it kind of spans quite a few industries there. So retail we've spoken about, and we work a lot within the property industry as well. So we've done work with companies like Airbnb, doing a lot of internal property inspections, actually going into vacation rental properties and checking them for condition and cleanliness and amenities. We work a lot with advertisers as well, so that links quite closely to a lot of the work we do in retail, where a lot of companies use us to check on their adverts and make sure that their billboards are being put up correctly, or that their digital adverts are displaying across the country. And also insurance that I mentioned before. So Aviva actually are a big UK insurer. We work with them on their claims side of the business, so collecting information for claims. And they actually led our Series A round, which we closed at the end of last year. So my ask from you guys today is that we are just at the beginning of starting to open an office here in New York. So we're hiring. The first team that we're going to be hiring here in New York are sales. So any really motivated salespeople, especially with connections within the target industries we're working with, we'd love to hear from them. And if you know anyone, then please refer them. We're also going to be looking for office space as well. So a flexible space that we can start small and start to grow our team here. And of course, we're always looking for connections into our target industries in terms of businesses that might want to work with us or just have insight into the markets here in New York. So that's everything from me. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks very much, Zara. So that's the 3 pitches from our companies tonight. Once again, I think the really great power of this network is that everyone sort of reaches into the Rolodex, helps these companies where they can. I know around 5 or so years ago I pitched at this network and everyone was very welcoming and made some great introductions for our business at the time. So it's good to see that spirit is still alive, so let's help these companies where we can. Thanks once again to Mike Hanrahan for taking the time to be with us. Thanks again for our startups for pitching. Thanks to our sponsors. Thanks to Kat. Happy birthday again. Stick around for a while, have a few drinks. I think we're going to go to the Wheel Tapper potentially for kicking on, but stick around and have a few more drinks and have a chat. And thanks again for everyone. Cheers.